Good morning, everyone. This is Miss Brooks. I know that lately it's been crazy, so we're doing NTI days for a solid 2 weeks. Hopefully we'll be back, but as soon as we get updates on anything, I will let you know through Dojo. I'll let you know through Google Classroom. If you guys need any sort of resources at all, or if you have any questions, just feel free to let me know. I just want to give you guys the best resources possible and to make the best use of your time. This is a time for important schoolwork because we are going to be out for a significant amount of time. I don't want you guys to think that, well, we're out for 2 weeks, this is just vacation. It's not. And the expectations are listed in your folders along with all the materials that you will need for the 2 weeks. I do want you to know the expectations. I expect for this work to be done by the time we get back. Parents, you should also know that this work needs to be done. If it is not done, then the students will do every single bit of that work when we come back. And they will not, I don't know what else to say, because they won't be able to do what they really want to or continue on until all of that stuff is done. That is a school policy. That is a district policy. Those need to be done. Again, if you have any questions, concerns, anything, you just contact me. Those of you who are in Ms. Hurst's homeroom, you weren't here for the first week we did social studies. That was supposed to be this coming week. However, I did think ahead on that, and you will be getting some information and notes in your folders for this week just to kind of catch you up. And we will be revisiting all that we did for the last week. So my homeroom kiddos might know about the pyramid, the layout of the geography of Egypt, and everything like that. Ms. Hurst's homeroom will be a little behind. So I am fully prepared. You're going to have some things in your folder. Anytime we're doing this video, either for reading or for social studies, you should have all of those things in there in your folder, and you should have them out in front of you. Just if you're confused, you can refer back to the notes. You can refer to the video. There are people who learn better with sound and people actually verbally telling them, and some that just like to look at the notes and kind of make notations on there. So I'm just trying to reach everybody. So this is going to be the social studies video. The reading video for the beginning of the week is going to be a little tricky. It might just be background knowledge on what the district is telling us as teachers. Trust me, when you find out something, we had just learned about it. So whenever I get information, you will get it. I promise you that. So let's go ahead and kind of dive in to the first part of social studies. For parents who are also watching this too, we are just beginning on ancient Egypt. We just got past ancient Greece. Now we're coming into ancient Egypt, which there are a lot of similarities. If you have a ancient Egypt map, you will realize there's a city state called Thebes in ancient Egypt. There was also a Thebes in ancient Greece. There's a lot of correlation there, and we will talk about all of those and compare the two throughout this entire unit, because I know the kids loved ancient Greece and they loved the mythology and the stories behind it, the wars, everything. Ancient Egypt will just be a step up from that. So this video in particular is going to be talking about the Rosetta Stone and their different forms of writing, because really the ancient Egyptians had a different form of writing than everyone else did. And it's because of the significance of the Rosetta Stone that we have translators today, and the significance and the importance. If we did not have that Rosetta Stone with us, we would never know as much information as we do now about ancient Egypt. Let me just give some background. With ancient Egypt, there's a hierarchy. There is a top, which is the pharaoh. The pharaoh is the most important. He is a representative of the gods as far as ancient Egypt went. And then it would go down from social order and class, all the way down, the lowest level being slaves, which obviously the slaves didn't get to do much. In fact, everything they did, they had to do for somebody else. It was not the best lifestyle, but that's how it was back in ancient Greece. Now, it's not tolerated. It is a definite, this is what's acceptable back then. Well, it's not acceptable now. It's the transition in time. And with the hierarchy, there is a part in the upper middle section of really a pyramid are the scribes. Now, scribes have their own category. Scribes are the writers and the readers of all of ancient Egypt. They started this concept of there are specific people who are trained versus, okay, everyone can just learn how to read and everyone can just learn how to write. It was not like that. Slaves did not know how to read or write. Farmers did not know how to read or write. Only the scribes were trained to read and write in ancient hieroglyphics. Now, hieroglyphics are basically what their writing was. And each sound or word or concept was represented by a little picture. And there would be a sequence of pictures. And that's how they would write. Now, people are like, well, where did they get the pictures? Like, how did they come up with them? We still don't know that, but the Rosetta Stone kind of helps with translating those, and we will get to that in a little bit. So the scribes, they were all boys. Sorry, girls, you did not know how to read and write. So only the scribes could really scribe, and they could write the hieroglyphics on the walls of the tombs. They could write on the walls of the temples. They could write on paper, or they could write on stone slabs. Now, this is where we get into, well, what about the pharaoh? The pharaoh did have his own designated scribe. Obviously, because the pharaoh is the most important, and he doesn't have to do much. He could just sit there and look pretty for all we know. But surprisingly, the pharaohs actually did learn how to read and write. So, but they weren't forced to. Really, it's just the scribes, and those are the very select few boys born into that profession that knew how to read and write in hieroglyphics. Now, hieroglyphics, you will see on your Google slide that I will discuss in a minute. The slide that I'm talking about is you have the set of hieroglyphics on the side, and you can write your name and click and drag the different hieroglyphics to see what it would look like, which in my opinion is really, really cool. It's almost like you're writing your name in a really ancient language. Like, if I existed back in that time, what would my name look like on that wall? Now, yes, they did have paper, but that paper was made out of papyrus, and papyrus was only found right on the Nile River, and it's basically a water plant stem. Now, these stems were very thick and very brutal to tear apart and make that paper. And you should see on your notes that I sent in the folder with you, I showed you a picture of papyrus. Papyrus, when you look at the piece of paper, it just looks very jagged. The lines, it's not smooth. That paper is not smooth by any means, but it got the job done as far as them being able to like write and send whatever letters they needed to. Now, the ink was made out of very natural, organic materials. Sometimes they would use scarab beetles, but not often, just because it was nasty to work with them. I mean, I wouldn't want to deal with it either. Sorry, I had to get a drink. But another thing is the stone slabs. Usually people, when they think of ancient Egypt, they think of, okay, pictures on stone, which, yes, they did that, but those were mainly for more important things, like for the temples and for rules in the rules from the pharaoh, or just to put in a pyramid. The pyramids, again, we're going to review. The pyramids were used as kind of like burial sites. Now, from the outside, you're like, oh, those are really cool. Those just look huge and they're really important. Like, they must be really cool. They must have worshipped those. Really? If you go underground on a lot of them, you will find secret rooms. And those secret rooms will lead to very noble mummies. So only the noblemen in ancient Egypt and the pharaohs got their own tombs in the pyramids. They were stored in a sarcophagus, which we will talk about in the next social studies video. Many things were placed in the secret rooms just because the ancient Egyptians valued what happens after you die. Oh, you have a second life in which you are immortal. And Anubis kind of took you there in a sense. We'll get to ancient Egyptian gods and goddesses in another video because I know you guys are really excited. Anubis, Set, Ra, we will get to all of those, I promise. So back on the subject of hieroglyphics. Hieroglyphics, you will notice on the Google Docs and the Google Slides that you will do, you will notice that C and K have the same picture. Now, this is because in the Rosetta Stone, we have discovered that it's not per letter. They don't have one picture for every letter. It just wasn't like that. They have one picture for every sound or every word. So they could make their own picture to symbolize one pharaoh. That was a common thing to do. So be mindful that you're not going to have a different picture for every single letter in the English alphabet. And that brings us to the Rosetta Stone. Now, the Rosetta Stone, some of you guys might be thinking, well, I've seen commercials of that on TV where it's just a little online program to help you learn a second language. The Rosetta Stone is a real thing. It is kept in the British Museum all the way in London. You will see that. It's in an enclosed glass case. It is very significant. So the Rosetta Stone was obviously found in Rosetta, Egypt, right next to Alexandria in the Mediterranean Sea area. So what happened was, we're going to go a little away from ancient Egypt for a second. We're going to talk about Napoleon. Now, Napoleon, obviously some of you guys know, but Napoleon wanted to be kind of like Alexander the Great in a sense, and he wanted to rule and create his own empire. Now, obviously, he tried 2 separate times and failed both times. But as part of his conquest in the late 1700s, he actually took him and part of his army all the way to Egypt. Now, they sailed the Mediterranean from France all the way to Egypt. And when they saw those pyramids, they were like, oh my gosh, what is this? What is this for? It's because of that initial, what in the world? Why have we not discovered this yet? That people were like, okay, something's going on here and we got to learn some more. So Napoleon and his army actually spread out a little bit through Alexandria and Rosetta. Now, there was one French soldier in his army in 1799 that was digging through the sand, obviously, just, well, curiosity, and he found a little piece of a black stone. And he's like, well, amongst all this sand, this is sticking out. So he uncovered what was the Rosetta Stone. And what they noticed was 3 different sections. At the top, there were hieroglyphics, the ancient hieroglyphics. The second one was demotic. So demotic is kind of like the Egyptian, like, verbal, like, slang, you could say. There's still a lot unknown about demotic, but you guys don't really need to worry about that. What we need to worry about is hieroglyphics. The middle section, don't worry about. But the very last section of the Rosetta Stone is ancient Greek. Ancient Greek. Think about it this way. Basically, they're going from hieroglyphics to another, like, subtle form of Egyptian, all the way to Greek. So basically what they did is they took those hieroglyphics and someone had to translate all of that into ancient Greek. Now, Napoleon and his army looked at it and they were like, oh my gosh, we actually know a little bit about Greek. So they decided, hey, this is really, really important. We need to look at this because possibly that last section, the ancient Greek section, could tell us what the first hieroglyphics, what that actually means. And that's where we get the translator. So obviously it took 20 years, guys, 20 years just to translate what the first section was even saying because they were stuck in the middle for a little bit. So a lot of you I know are asking, well, what does the Rosetta Stone actually say? Now, the first thing they uncovered with it is they found the word Ptolemy. Now, Ptolemy was extremely significant because if you look back, Ptolemy was a famous historian and companion of Alexander the Great. So there's a correlation between there. And that same Ptolemy that was his companion actually became Pharaoh. So what many historians are thinking are Ptolemy was the one to set straight the Rosetta Stone and build that bridge between 2 different areas and 2 different ancient civilizations to bridge the 2 together. So that just makes it very, like, that's awesome for us. And that's where Rosetta Stone gets the translations from. Now Ptolemy, he was only mentioned a few times in there. Part of what was in the Rosetta Stone too, you'll find this funny, tax papers. Their form of taxing from ancient Egypt and translated into ancient Greek and then eventually translated into English just on regular pieces of paper. So you think it would be something important, like this is what's going on in the world and this is how we did this. No, some of it was just about taxes and how some nobles could use tax evasion. That's it. But still, that is an awesome building bridge between two ancient civilizations. Now, I know this was a lot in this video, but let me go over, for this assignment, what I want you to do on Google Classroom. Also, I have hard copies in your folder. So if you just are having trouble with the internet, I'm sorry. I wish I could help. But I have hard copies in there for you. I promise. So for the Google Slides, you're going to want to go into your Google Classroom for Social Studies for me. And for Social Studies, you're going to go to Brooks Ancient Egypt. You're going to go into those slides. I made every single student a different copy. You're going to want to do the vocabulary slide, which we should have already gone over those. If you didn't have me for Social Studies before we had all this mess with NTI days and everything, you will find the notes in your folder. So the vocabulary section, the first section of questions and answers, you should see little blue squares at the bottom, some talking about the Rosetta Stone and Scribes. That's the one I want you to do, and the hieroglyphics. I really want to see some of your guys' names in ancient hieroglyphs. So parents, this is really up to you. You can take a picture of your child doing the little hieroglyphs thing and send me the picture either through Dojo or you can email it to me. I provided both of those for you. But I'm really anxious to see what some of your guys' names look like in ancient Egyptian, ancient hieroglyphs. Now, I did want to mention a kind of a bonus little activity if you're really liking ancient Egyptian. So, as I mentioned before in class, I have been to Paris. I have been to France. I've been to Italy, Greece, Switzerland. I've been a little around. One of the things I went to in Paris was the Louvre, which is the famous museum. They house the Mona Lisa that I told you guys you have to stay at least 100 feet away, like they have it blocked off. Part of the Museum of the Louvre is Egyptian antiquities or different symbols and items that they found in ancient Egypt and they brought to the museum. So there is a virtual field trip link that I'm going to put in the description below. You can click on that. It's completely free. It should be the first one at the bottom. It says Egyptian antiquities. And then there's a little spot at the bottom where it says click here to for the virtual tour. You can click on that. And you're basically in the Louvre. Like, you're looking around and checking everything out. Again, you don't have to do this, but if you do this, I will let you skip one assignment for the NTI days if you get this done. Simple as that. And you get to pick which assignment you skip for that. Obviously, with social studies, you can choose a social studies assignment, but I will also carry that into reading. If you don't want to do a reading assignment, well, there you go. You got to do the virtual tour to get it. So there are the virtual field trip. I want you to find certain things in that museum for me. And I want you to write them down. I want you to put what room you found them in, either room 1, 2, 3. As soon as you get into the virtual tour, there'll be a little spot like at the bottom. You see where my pencil is? It'll be like right near the bottom in a tan kind of bar. It'll tell you the Louvre. It'll tell you Egyptian antiquities. And then it'll tell you what room you're in. So I want you to, when I list all of these things down, I want you, if you find them, I want you to put what room and what time period. Like, so it could be 2600 BC. I want you to write that down for me. Once you have that down, you can send it to me and tell me what assignment you want to skip. Simple as that. So let me just go through and tell you guys what I'm going to be looking for. Now, I don't expect you to spell these right. Trust me, some of them are extremely hard. But when you click on something, like when you click on an object and it brings it up with all the views and stuff, it should say at the bottom, it should look pretty much right. And I will also put those down in the description on what to look for, just because they are very hard to spell. The first item I want you to look for, which shouldn't be hard at all because you literally spawn in that room, is the Great Sphinx of Taunus. The Great Sphinx of Taunus. Now, we talked about in class what a sphinx is. It has the head of a person, but the body of a lion. I want you guys to look for that. Now, the next one is probably the hardest to pronounce. The statue of Nokthorheb. Nokthorheb. I know, it's a mouthful. The third one I want you to look for is the paintings from the tomb of Unzu. Or Unzu. Whatever you want to pronounce it. Whatever helps you spell it out, you do that. The fourth is the fragment of the Book of the Dead in papyrus. Now, the Book of the Dead will be extremely important, and we will get to that in a later video when we talk about the mummification process. It is on papyrus, so if you're looking for that part of the book, make sure you're looking for jagged paper. Paper that kind of looks like, to me it looks like straw. It looks like you just smashed some straw together and you put it together. Number 5, a statue of Thoth in the form of a baboon. Now, you're thinking, what? There are no baboons in ancient Egypt. If you look at the overall globe and if you look at a map, ancient Egypt is in the continent of Africa. So you can kind of see the correlation there. Thoth we will learn about when we talk about Egyptian religion and their many deities and their many gods and goddesses that they worshipped. But look for the form of a baboon. I actually think this statue is pretty cute. And then number 6, I want you to look for the Cubit Rod of Maya. Now, Maya was actually one of the workers or one of the close advisors for King Tut. You guys are going to be confused, like, what? What is a Cubit Rod? Cubit Rod, really, as soon as you see it, you'll be like, oh, I kind of get it. It's basically a rod, but with gold hieroglyphs all over it. Really, that's it. Again, if you have any other questions, comments, or concerns, you can let me know through Classroom Dojo or email. Everything should be in hard copy unless you have, obviously, I can't give you the virtual tour on paper. I can't do that for you. I wish I could, but I can't. But that's fine. Again, I hope you guys are staying safe. Please stay alert, but not anxious. I know some of you guys are stressing out and just trying to buy as much as you can. And really, I just want you guys to stay safe and hope you have a good time.